Bismillah.
Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I mean, very good evening. Today's session number 12 of the Founder This program uh, will be led by Miss Aisha Memon, a mentor, a trainer, and passionate about entrepreneurship and personal growth. She is a founding member of Aspire Pakistan. She is also a data analyst in engineering infrastructure at Cisco IT. So the session focuses on resourcefulness, learning how to make the best use of available resources, think creativity, and turn challenges into opportunities. So, Madam Aisha, the floor is yours. You can also introduce yourself. It's my request. So the floor
जी,
is yours.
thank you so much, Azharullah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. मेरा नाम आयशा है और मैं यहाँ सैन होजे कैलिफोर्निया में रहती हूँ. Um, I'm here to talk about resourcefulness, how to progress against all odds. It's a very good topic. I'm very passionate about discussing this with you all. तो कोई भी questions हो, कुछ भी हो, आप please chat में भेज दें या unmute yourself and ask. I want to keep this interactive. Inshallah, we'll have a good discussion and we'll also get to some of these, Q&A, inshallah. So a little bit about myself. I do work at Cisco. Primarily, मेरा जो focus है और area of expertise है वो data governance है. Um, in these days, data governance is very, very crucial in the AI readiness. आप सुन रहे होंगे and आप देख रहे होंगे, the advancement of AI and the readiness of AI and everything is very important for all enterprises and all organizations, all governments, everyone. So what data governance is that it looks at data compliance, जैसे country specific regulations होती है, data privacy होती है, as well as data quality, so that we're ensuring that the AI is using data that is, the best quality that we can provide. Otherwise, it can lead to a lot of, hallucinations in the findings. So there's a lot of use cases right now, even within data governance, of how to use AI so that we can augment our workflows. Basically, that's what I do on a day-to-day job. There is a lot of transformation required in this effort. हर area में आप जानते होंगे कि there's like old way of doing things and then there's going to be a new way of doing things. As part of this transformation journey, there's a lot of fear of what the unknown is in the new world. So a lot of fear is coming from job security. Basically, AI automation is going to change the new world, and a lot of the current roles that exist today, some people are very afraid that those roles are no longer going to be required. So I feel that this is something that we should all address, that AI is going to augment what we do, but AI is not going to be the creative agent or the strategy agent, right? Humans are still going to be required in the loop. So these are some tensions we see every day. I'm sure you guys are seeing it too. Or some of your ideas are probably AI, agentic AI frameworks for something that is very manual right now. So I feel कि यही है कि for any transformation effort, you kind of have to build that founder thinking, that you may be a visionary, you are trying to change something, you're trying to bring something good. You will get a lot of pushback, you will get a lot of tension, but it's something you are doing for the benefit of the world. So you have to keep going. Other than that, I do have my own little consulting that is called Alchemize X. I started that as a transformation strategy consultant. It is on pause right now, mainly because there's so many other things happening in my life, including my health. So what I'm doing is focusing more these days on nonprofit. So how do I help build some strategy and road mapping for nonprofit efforts? Along with that, on my personal life, I am very passionate about learning more about neurodiversity. So again, this kind of comes back to AI. Okay, our human cognitive thinking, the way we bring things to the table in a team, every diverse opinion matters. So how can we make our environments more neurodiverse so that we get input that are very different, and that's how we make good teams. So even in education, a lot of times we see there is not much acceptance of divergent thinking. But if we think about it, if we pause and say, no, how do we get more inclusive of neurodivergent as well? Some of the areas of this can include, ADHD, सुना होगा आपने, या autism सुना होगा आपने. What we're doing is we're thinking, how do we make our teams and our environments more inclusive of all? So that's something I'm very passionate about. Other than that, I try to collaborate as much as I can globally. Aspire is where I started. So Aspire, I'm a member. I love what Aspire does. I've also visited some of the teams in Hyderabad, so I'm very passionate about Aspire Vision across Pakistan, and it's doing amazing. So I'm grateful to be here. And along the side, I try to do what I can for education efforts in Pakistan. There's a lot of good that came out with all the movement. We have connected a network of a lot of Pakistanis that are all driving something very good, whatever they're passionate about, and I try to volunteer with them when I can. एक और चीज़, just being very transparent and vulnerable. I'm also a patient advocate for Crohn's disease. That is something I deal with. It can cause some uncertainty in my day-to-day, energy and my health and my pain. Magar, I feel what I'm learning is that there should be representation of all minorities when it comes to clinical research and trials. So there's another nonprofit that I kind of help strategize with, because it's important. Unless we are there as part of the clinical research, then the medications and the therapies that are coming out are not really catered to us. So this is something we have to do. It's extra work, but it's something I'm very, involved in right now. And I'm also a mother of two. I have two teenagers, and yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. So going forward, I want to really share more about the topic, which is resourcefulness. I thought about it for a few minutes, and I feel it's basically saying do more with less. And we hear that all the time in any project or any startup also. There's only a very limited amount of resources that you have been given to kind of move forward with your idea, to show your idea, to create an MVP. And you do not have unlimited resources, right? So this is where there's opportunity to take those challenges and turn them into something that you can build for you, to work for you, not against you. So in this effort, मुझे लगता है कि transformation is needed in our thinking, क्योंकि we can carry the bias ke, if only we had more resources, if only we had a little bit more time, we could have really done this. Magar, you have to be a little bit ahead of the game and say, within these resources, within these constraints, what can I produce and what can I deliver that is a minimum viable product? The roadmap can still continue, but there's some things that we have to do. So part of my intention of this presentation today is to give more frameworks, things that we use every day, that may help you in thinking how to build this resourcefulness as a muscle. You have to understand there is that, growth mindset, and then there's that victim mindset. So obviously fixed mindset के साथ इंसान इतना positive or इतना optimist नहीं हो सकता. But with all these constraints in the picture, you still have to be that optimist and you still have to continue. So there are things we control and there's things we do not control, but we can influence. So I think mindset, attitude, and our own, who we are as a person, I think that's something we can control. How the environment reacts or how the environment, either helps us or works against us, that's something we cannot control, but we can influence. So part of this discussion is also going to learn, we need to learn to say no. That's important. If you have limited resources, you cannot do everything. So there's some frameworks I'm going to share. And again, feel free to ask any questions or interject, or otherwise we'll have some time at the end as well. So I tend to share a lot about burnout. That's something I like to talk about and write about. You will need to understand, when this resourcefulness or the resources are going to be constrained, you will have a feeling of some misalignment, which is something you want to do, but you cannot. You just don't have the capacity, you don't have the resources, you don't have the budget, you don't have the time, you don't have money, you don't have the team. So that misalignment of what you want to do, what you're attached to, and not being able to get there, right? So this is something that I feel a lot of startups and a lot of founders and a lot of teams, leaders, they fall into this trap of burnout because it's a little bit like if you think from Islamic perspective, we are told, Allah has told us that we need to use all of our resources. We need to try, put all your effort in, tie the camel, and then leave it up to Allah because we don't know the outcome. The outcome is something we do not control. That's in the future, but we give all our best effort in. So with optimism, we try our best, and at some point we have to let it go. So I feel like burnout only happens when you are so attached to the outcome that you want that you think you can control that. And when it's not aligned to what you want and the outcome is something completely different, it's not what you wanted, then you hit burnout. And burnout is different for different people. I feel like it depends on how emotionally attached you are to the outcome or how much energy you spent, thinking about this. Everybody reacts differently. This is where the neurodiversity comes into play because not everybody responds to burnout different, in the same way. Everybody just responds differently. So in order to create sustainable innovation, you have to have some sort of control on your burnout. If it's a cycle that you're completely falling into, then it's going to be hard to sustain innovation because you keep falling into this burnout. It may take months to get out of burnout. It's not the same as like, it can be thrown out as a word that's not very understood, but burnout is a real phenomenon. There's more studies, more research happening about burnout, especially entrepreneurial burnout. It's something to be aware of, and if you feel like you're falling into this trap, then get your strategy in place to help yourself. Surround yourself with a like-minded cohort, like-minded, same stage entrepreneurs, or more mentors, more sponsors, more advocates. You won't know about it until you actually go through it. So don't feel like you're the only one going through burnout if that's happening to you because of constraints and resources. So don't feel alone. It's almost like a lot of people go through this, and it's something that's part of the journey. It's even part of the spiritual path. So we'll talk more about that. And with that burnout, I am here to say that apart from, what we can do, all the effort we can put to make our resources work for us, there is also a need for some rest. And I try to advocate this, that your brain only has a limited capacity. We're not machines. We don't go full throttle all the time. We have to take a pause and we have to reflect and use those times and moments of stress to then build in rest as part of your routine. We see and hear a lot about, the Japanese like Zen methods. There's some of that in our culture as well. But taking a moment to actually rest and reflect is important. Don't wait for something like burnout to happen because when burnout happens, you're forced to rest because you're not able to be productive. So don't wait for that bad of a moment to happen where you have to, your body just gives up and you have to be in this mode of building yourself back up. I feel like allocating amounts of rest periodically, or even, when we do sprints, we have to have retrospectives. Retrospective is nothing but taking a pause and saying, what did we learn? What did we do well? What did we not do so well? And get better from that. So just build some calmness around yourself. As a founder, I feel like you are in this hustle culture. There's 20 things that are needing your attention every day. Maybe not all 20 require it. So prioritize and build your rest as one of your own self-care routine. I'm going to move forward to product mindset. This is something that's just a framework if you think about it. You guys are all following something like similar to this where you have your iterations, you have your, what have you committed to produce as an MVP in the first 3 months, first 6 months, and then what's later. So being very pristine in what you take as backlog is important. That management of your backlog of requirements needs to be strictly managed. Otherwise, it can get chaotic. Oftentimes in the beginning stages, any founder, you get 20 feedbacks and you want to incorporate all of that. You say yes to everything. That's a trap. As a founder what you can produce and what your team can produce and deliver. Be very, very pristine in keeping the backlog clean. What you commit to deliver now is only the MVP. That's it. Everything else may be a good idea. It may be good feedback from customer or from mentors, etc. But you may need to put it later in the roadmap. It could be way later or it could be next. That's up to you. But a lot of times no idea is a bad idea. You need to incorporate it. It should give you a little strategy, but what you commit yourself to do now, there has to be a reality check of what resources you have, right? So don't overcommit, because then it's really hard to make do with the resources that you have on hand. There's a lot of ways that we can try to be more optimized in how we use our resources. And we're getting better and better at that. We'll talk more, but at least use some of these frameworks that are very good in software development or even product development. Having this product mindset gives you that power to be that product owner and be very careful of what you put on your roadmap, so that your team can understand as well. Just make it very clear for your team. The more as a leader you help your team navigate complexities and just make it simple for them. Like simple as in, this is what we committed to do. This is all we have to do. Don't worry about the rest of the roadmap. We'll get there later. Sometimes there's different ways to get to the deliverable. Sometimes we make, a lot of trade-offs. We make a decision that we know we're going to incur more technical debt later. It's almost like delaying the pain. We know, but because of limited resources, we have to deliver what we have to deliver now. For me in my day-to-day in my job, there's a lot of times we do transformation work, which is we're building the plane, but we're also flying the plane at the same time. So there's like an old plane, but we have to change the engine. We have to swap out the wings. We have to do all this work, which is transformation, modernization, optimization. But we're starting, and the business doesn't stop. We don't have that luxury. So we have to keep producing and delivering while the engine is running, and it's quite difficult. But it's a mindset. It's what we can do. It's a reality check. So be aware of this. The other thing I really like that I've adopted even in my day-to-day is having this agile mindset. And Agile, Scrum frameworks, they're all there. The Agile Manifesto is available to you. But you have to be careful, like translating that roadmap from the product roadmap into what is going to be your agile, sprint, maybe sprint deliverable, 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, what do you deploy? And how do you make sure that deployment is working? It's an MVP, that's a working product. So iteratively we change, iteratively we grow. You can't just have a big bang product. It has to kind of be built in pieces and then it comes together. So I feel agile mindset is important in what you do in your day-to-day, that there is this sequencing of events. There is sometimes dependencies that need to be called out. Sometimes some things can happen in parallel. So, between the marketing and the product deployment and, all these different areas of your product that you will have to see, the engineering, the software development, there's some things that can happen in parallel, but they sometimes have dependencies on each other too, like for demos and stuff. So how can we, collectively come together, groom the backlog, pick what we need for those sprints, and kind of build a regimen around it. And after every 2 weeks, after every 2 sprints, maybe do a retrospective and ask, what did we learn? What did we do good? What could we improve? In this area, I feel having some humbleness is very important. We have to cut our ego off. Sometimes what happens is we get so attached to what we wanted to do that I feel, our ego gets the best of us. So I'm going to pause. Is there a question?
I don't think so. Nobody raised their hand. So
Okay.
you can continue.
Will do. But feel free to interject or interrupt me. I have a few slides more, and then we can discuss more questions as they come. Hopefully this is resonating. This is what I do day to day, and I'm very passionate. Um, but yeah, like ego, I feel is a big thing, especially when it comes to retrospectives. Like how can we all be very transparent and open and talk about what did not work? Sometimes we get, a little bit of this, like I feel like our personalities and our emotions get the best of us. But we, as we have to continue to work on ourselves to be able to receive feedback and to then receive criticism and maybe convert it into something constructive so that we're not bogged down. Um, so customer feedback, it's very important. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But when it's not good, it's actually very useful so that you can actually make your product what the customer wants it to be. So it's funny, we all come with our own idea of what we're building, but the more we get feedback from the market, the better we can course correct. And the faster you fail, the faster you fail forward. It's not that you're never going to fail, you are going to fail. But the more you realize that the sooner you fail, you learn from that and you make it a more successful product. And one more thing that's very close to my heart is the heart-centered design. It's like design thinking. What's different about design thinking, I feel, is that you really put empathy into understanding the problem that you're solving for who. Like, who is your customer? Put them at the center of everything you do. Like, you have to care about the pain that that customer is now facing and how your product or your idea or your solution is going to take that pain away, right? What is the gain going to be? The more you are closer to that, the more you're clear on that, I feel like the better the design of the product will be, to be honest. Design thinking and the D school, like Stanford, they all focus on this. This is what, that's how some of these stories come up in business case studies, like how Apple designed the mouse, for instance, right? Like the mouse came out of this design thinking principle. Like, what are you trying to do? How do you get there? And they use like a perfume roller, to kind of get into this idea, like, oh, we should be able to drag and, move this cursor around to make it more graphical. So I feel design thinking or heart-centered design is at the center of everything you do. Um, Sometimes there's a little bit of alchemy. Alchemy is just more spiritual term for whatever resources you have been given, you will turn it into something that's like gold. So even if you have lead, you will turn it into gold. If you have dust, you will turn it into gold. So it's a little bit of this like magic, almost like a baraka kind of a thing that kind of happens. If you really care, truly care to solve a problem, I think that's what happens. And you get that alignment with your heart, with your mind, with your soul to solve that problem. So in the process of design thinking, it's always necessary when you brainstorm in the beginning of how you are, depending on what stage your startup is at, there's a need to brainstorm and collectively get as many ideas as you can generate. In this process of like divergence, like this is where resources don't matter. When you're just gathering ideas of what you're building, like think about unlimited resources because that's the only way you can tap into some, ideation, some really innovative thoughts. Then as this process continues, no idea is a bad idea. You throw out more ideas, you collectively design, and then you come to the process of converging because then the reality hits. So the process allows you to kind of expand your resources and then do the reality check to come back to what you can deliver. And maybe the rest of it goes on the roadmap because then you know what your ideal product is going to be, but you have to work within the reality, right? The realm of reality. So in this whole process, like I said, empathy with the customer matters. Oftentimes we are our own customer. We are our own best customer because we find a need. We find a need in our a use case that we know we would benefit from, and that way we know that pain that we're solving. So something to think about. And like I said, we have to learn to say no. Maybe no and not yet. maybe that's even better, because then you put it somewhere in a parking lot or in the future. You don't dismiss it, but you don't let it bother your current iteration, right? You will get these inputs all the time from everywhere, not just from customers, but even from teammates sometimes, or others, or leaders. Um, but we have to start saying, we will listen to all those, but don't necessarily act on them. You have the power as a founder, as an entrepreneur, to put it on the roadmap or to dismiss it, and I'll leave it up to you to do that. So another very resourceful thing that is helping us all right now is AI. And let's learn to augment what we are doing with AI. I mean, it's really helpful that to see, like, a lot of times, using ChatGPT and stuff, like, we are able to really have an assistant on our hands. And maybe it's not the most perfect assistant, it's learning still, but what you prompt it to do, it does like a decent job. I would say like a first draft, a rough draft of what you want. And it helps us also get more into this, job of fine tuning what AI brought, and then starting with that to make it into something final, like a deliverable. So I feel there's more opportunity to now expand your resourcefulness and even bring AI as one of your team member. And let's see, like, let's identify what are the tasks that you are doing or your team is doing that may need some AI help, and that will speed it up. It's free, and it can, maybe there's subscription and stuff, but the point is that you can get your team to be more productive the more they're using AI. In our work, we are pushing very hard on AI first engineering. A lot of times, now we have tools on our fingertips that we can just put a wireframe in, and the whole coding is done for us. It's a first pass. It may not be perfect. Obviously, a data engineer or a coder, somebody who's programming, will have to review it to make sure it's okay. But at least what used to take 2 weeks to do, it can take like 2 hours, and that's amazing. So leverage AI where you can as part of your design for your product and even for your team to operate a little bit more efficiently. This will really open up your resources to do what's really important, and not waste time in bringing up something. So again, for each of your ideas, it may be a little different. I am trying to use AI where I can. And so far it's, the first rough draft is never really good. But I think the more we prompt it better, the better it's going to get. And sometimes it takes multiple exchanges with AI. So prompt engineering is something even you as your team, promote it with your team to use AI where possible. I wanted to also add something about Baraka. I talked about it before. It's just how our intention, like, kind of gets alignment with our purpose. And sometimes you can sense that maybe you as a founder or you as an entrepreneur, when you get into that passionate, like, discussion, or even in the passionate, deployment, a cycle, you will feel you can, like, collapse time and space. It's kind of magical, but sometimes you can be very hyper focused and very, like, it's almost like sometimes you tap into this extra energy, this unseen energy that comes in. If you really align yourself, your heart, your mind, and your soul into what you're doing, you can do a lot more, because then your distractions are gone. So try to find what that spark is that keeps you going, and try to minimize the distractions of life. It's not to say that you have to become like super introvert or anything, but in the day to day, like in our life, there's a lot of distractions that take a lot of time. So prioritize yourself and prioritize your mental health. And at the same time, try to tap into those moments where you feel like you are in the zone. And the more you practice that, the more you can develop it as a on demand, which is great, because then you don't feel like it only happens once in a while. You can make that happen when you want. It's not to sustain it for too long, because then you might, burn out. But there's like these pockets of time during this cycle the development of a product that you can tap into this potential. I hope you find it. It's very, very fun. And yeah, we know about the triple constraints of any project. It's basic business, project management 101, that you have limited, you have to keep watch on your scope. Don't let scope creep happen. It happens all the time, and it deviates projects. You never meet the deadline or the timeline because you allowed scope creep. So you have to be very careful, like surgical to what you're trying to do, and very focused. Budget is another one. Obviously, you have limited resources of what you can put in, and the team itself, the capacity of the team. This is like a balance. You have to find a very, very unique balance for your own product. But sometimes knowing these and being very familiar with what those constraints are, you can still develop something that's innovative. That's how most of the startup and the accelerator programs work, or the incubation programs work. The point is that, okay, we believe in your idea. We believe that you can be successful. Here's very limited time, very limited resources, but you produce something that's an MVP that we can then see the promising results of what your roadmap is going to be. You just have to prove it out. It's like a proof of concept, but you have to make it real, like an MVP. So the more you are intimately understanding these constraints and making them work for your benefit, the better. And now with AI, you can do even more. So be aware of these things. Being in that victim mindset of like, oh, if only I had more time, like there's always going to be that pessimist that comes out, that if only I had more money, if only I had more time, or if only I had more resources. Like that's something that I feel like it's a lie we tell ourselves. Like, don't fall into that trap. Try to keep yourself very real and aware, and then you move forward. There's no difference. You are living in the present, and you're confirming what those constraints are, and you're going to operate within those constraints, and you'll be successful. The sooner you can prove it out, the better for your product, and more will come. So it's like a cycle. So you just have to be aware of this. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I had as far as material. I do have some resources I tap into. I shared the links here, more about some of this productivity mindset. There's a good URL here, The Productive Muslim. They have some good resources, some good blogs, and then Heart of Design is something I also carefully I follow, and I read their books and stuff. It's just taking spirituality as a lens into what we do on a day-to-day to bring some spiritual practice into our, strategy and product development. So I will pause. I will end here, and I'll open it up for questions.